Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the PowettPlay podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I'm good, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, it's going okay. Thank you. It's a bit of a grim weather situation at the minute in England, as I've mentioned to you many a time. So, how are things in the Caribbean?
Yeah, it wasn't great a few days ago. There was a tropical storm. Well, I don't think that was a tropical storm from the damage it done, but it was categorized as a tropical storm, and the
Right.
weather was quite bad. We flew through it to get here. So Hayden Walsh, my team, was actually on the same flight as me, and we came off almost in tears and probably wet back end of our trousers because like we swear to God that we were about to die. And the guy that was sitting next to me on the plane, look, I ended up holding his hand. I was like, "Oh, yep, this is definitely how I'm gonna die." So, no, it's not been great the past few days, but it's a sunny day out today. So, I've got a practice session in a few hours, and hopefully we can get some cricket in over the next week leading into the tournament.
Yeah, and how is the prep going ahead of the Super 50?
Yeah, it's not been great, as I said. The trial matches. So, I got in late. Obviously had some stuff to do with Emma, and so we got sort of a extended personal leave to attend to those things. And from since I've been here, it's pretty much rained. I think maybe 3 out of the 4 days that I've been here so far. So, got like some hits and stuff. Obviously, the trainers always find a way to get fitness testing done, which is ironic. But no, we did fitness testing this morning. We did some skin folds and stuff yesterday. We've got more fitness testing tomorrow. But just looking forward to get into the cricket side of things.
Yeah.
Especially at this point with only a week left before the tournament. I
Yeah.
just want to start hitting some balls, obviously, in this climate and this side of the world and get used to the pitches again.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, the last time we spoke, you was obviously over here playing for Ashted and stuff. So, at the start of the season, you talk about how you're having to adapt to the slow wickets, the slow things, and you go back and stuff. So it does take a bit of time to get used to a few bits.
Yep, it does. It does. But obviously, being from the Caribbean, it's easy to adjust. Adjust that way. So no, I'll just need a few days out in the middle. I should be fine.
Is that something you want to do? Is it just rhythm sort of thing, hitting balls, or what sort of gets you going a little bit?
Yeah, it's sort of a volume thing for me.
Right.
So I just hit X amount of balls. Like once I'm hitting X amount of balls on a daily basis, I'll be fine. And again, something for me. I mean, ideally, if it's on a pitch, that is like the perfect world. But even if I can just get into a concrete strip, I'll just get some full tosses lobbed at me and just feel that rhythm. Like once I'm getting that rhythm, it's all about that volume, and I'll be fine.
Yeah, no, cool. So obviously the main thing we wanted to talk about today was the World Cup, which started yesterday with an emphatic victory for New Zealand beating England, and Pakistan played today. So who do you see as being the favourites for the tournament?
So I've got sort of 5 teams. I've got So this is how I categorize. I think any of these 5 teams are the ones that are going to make it to the semi-finals.
Right. Okay.
That's India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, and
it seems to be England, maybe.
England. Yeah.
I was thinking he's going to leave that out on purpose here. Or?
There we go. So I think between those 5 teams, that's where the semi-finalists and obviously the eventual winner is going to come from. I think that New Zealand is an amazing tournament team.
Yeah.
If you look at their history, they get very deep into tournaments all the time. And again, you look at their performance against England in the last match, it just goes to strengthen my point that in a tournament situation, and you still didn't have a Kane Williamson, a Tim Southee, Ish Sodhi playing, and they won with 13 overs to spare. So that's
it was
them.
It was ridiculously good way to start a tournament. And I think that we talk about tournaments and momentum and things, like they've come out the traps flying. It's a big thing to get that confidence going and thinking, we're in that right direction straight away, really. How do you, as a player, how would you go about adapting to a tournament, and how do you sort of go about conditioning yourself to make sure that you, obviously with it being a little bit more, not as necessarily fast paced as it sometimes can be, but like how do you prepare yourself for a tournament style of cricket?
Well, it's sort of finding your rhythm, your balance, sort of
Yeah,
your whole routine. So even things that people don't necessarily think about, because obviously the average fan just looks at what's happening on the field, but your practice routines, your gym routines, your sleep patterns, what time are the matches being played, what time do you want to wake up, what time do you want to fall asleep,
yeah,
to sync up with the hours of play, your meals. Obviously, this World Cup, there's been a lot of talk going on about the amount of travel
yeah,
that's been asked of guys and teams in this World Cup. So you have to factor in the fatigue from jet lag traveling all over India, which is a pretty big country,
yeah,
um, and then having to still go and get your fitness working, your strength and conditional working, your cricket practice, and all that stuff in. So
yeah,
um, it's about guys, whichever team sort of strikes that balance,
yeah,
and dare I say has sort of maybe a better travel schedule and is able to get an upper hand on opponents that way, I think will sort of go further.
yeah. Because I think based on that top five that you mentioned, the five teams, I think England are actually the only team that don't play in the same city twice.
Yeah.
And that's what they were sort of saying, how that's going to be having a big impact, really. Well, not a big impact, will definitely play a part, really, in the fact of the rest. They're not going to have that sort of maybe day off where it might just be a case of feet up. Their day off might be traveling from, one city to another. So I think that will have like an impact, potentially on that. I don't want to make any excuses from an English perspective, but I think that could be pretty tricky. Out of that five, who do you see as the ones that stand out from a pressure perspective in terms of they've got? I know obviously India, obviously the host. Do you believe that they are probably the favourites as such to win it?
I think so. Obviously, there's pressure being the host nation. You're playing in a country that has 1 billion people, and everyone is sort of switched on to this tournament, expecting and hoping for India to
Yeah,
repeat what they did in 2011. So, I mean, you've got Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, two of the very best audio players going around at the moment.
yeah,
One just went past 13,000, the next one just went past 10,000.
yeah,
Between them, they've got almost 80 ODI centuries. So it's like, crazy numbers between just the two of them. Perfect timing for them getting Jasprit Bumrah back when they
yeah,
did, and the way he's bowling at the moment as well.
yeah,
I mean, Mohammad Siraj taking off and looking not even near to what Jasprit Bumrah has displayed, which is just mind-boggling for the strength of the Indian team. To
yeah,
be able to bring in someone as experienced as Ravichandran Ashwin when Axar Patel goes down, it's just a plethora of options that they have at
yeah,
their disposal,
yeah,
which makes them such a hard team to beat over 50 overs. I mean, obviously, T20, it sort of brings teams closer together, but once you have such an extended period of time that they can make adjustments within the game and obviously
yeah,
regroup and regroup again. I think India sort of stand out at the moment. But having said that, if England have a good day, obviously I don't think they're as strong as they were in the last World Cup. They don't seem to have that same bowling potency.
yes,
Obviously missing Jofra. I mean, Sam Curran, as good as a cricketer as he is, Chris Wilkes and all of them, that extra pace, obviously we know what that does to batters. Likewise, the absence of Ben Stokes was definitely felt in that batting unit.
yeah,
But having said all of that, I mean, New Zealand chased it down with 13 overs to go, and that was 280. So that would have been asking England to make 400
yeah,
and more well, in an ideal world. So
yeah.
I think those two teams are the ones that stand out. Pakistan and New Zealand is sort of a dark horse type of, you never know how far they could get, but they can do something if given the opportunity.
Yeah, I think you were saying there about that England's sort of pace attack. I think that's where the management of Mark Wood will be quite interesting to see how they get him to which games he plays in and how they look after him to make sure that he is ready when required in certain certain grounds. Might be a bit more pacey, so he'll have to play in that. There might be some that are a bit more subjected to a bit of spin potentially, so they might leave him out for that one potentially, I suppose. So I suppose when like we discussed at the start, like it's from a tournament perspective and the traveling to different places, it's trying to figure out the balance consistently to get the best sort of side out as well. I think England definitely did miss Stokes, regardless of the outcome of yesterday's game. The experience that he has will ultimately be a benefit to any side, regardless of the format of cricket. I think it'll be interesting to see how Root goes. I think he's been under pressure a little bit based on the trying to fit Harry Brook into the side. Whether they go with Harry Brook or whether they go with, ultimately they're going to probably be have to play Ben Stokes because of the quality of player he is. But I thought the knock from Joe Root yesterday showed the importance of having, everyone always talks about the firepower when it comes to white ball cricket, especially. And I think it showed the importance of having that glue in a side to make it work for the likes of Livingston to come off and whoever it may be. And I think that's when you look at Australia, Steve Smith will play that similar sort of role. Williamson will do it in the way that for New Zealand and things. How important do you see that sort of role being in this 50-over format, especially in this tournament now?
I think it's imperative. Every team has someone that does it. I think in England's case, obviously, Joe Root hasn't played much 50-over cricket over the past, let's say, year and a half, 2 years. So it's more of you saw that in that series that they played against New Zealand in England before the World Cup, and it's sort of a momentum thing, like getting back familiarity with the 50-over game because he hasn't played it for so much and understanding what tempo he needs to go at. I think having a file like Ben Stokes, when he comes back into 11, will help. You see the way Kane Williamson and Steve Smith do it for their countries. It's absolutely amazing. I think someone that goes, I guess, not mentioned enough on the upper echelons of cricket, I would say that does that role and did it absolutely perfectly was Shea Hope. Not just picking him up because he's our client, but he's got 15 ODI centuries in like 110 one-day matches. That is absolutely phenomenal, and he just literally just plays that same role as those guys, and his game has gone to another level now where he has accelerated his strike rate, which obviously only bodes well for him and for West Indies cricket moving forward. But specifically back to this World Cup, I think that role is something that every team has to identify someone who can go out and do that sort of 8 out of 10 for them, because the way that one-day cricket is being played nowadays, so much more positive, so much more ultra-aggressive. You saw with England that when they lost those wickets, you still needed someone who had the ability to have a solid technique and bat and rebuild and repair an innings at a healthy strike rate as well, so that the game didn't just get stopped, but the game was still moving along. Even it wasn't a runner ball, but it was still strike rate of 80, strike rate of 90, something that was still acceptable and allowing the guys at the back end to sort of launch. But they just lost too many wickets consistently. But I think Joe Root's role is it's something that is of absolute importance in this England team.
Yeah, no, I think obviously I completely echo exactly what you said there, and it highlights that, and throughout that tournament period, you'll see the importance of that person who will happily go at 100, 110, 120 strike rate and allow the rest of the lads to be, to play that aggressive and dominant role. I think it's I suppose it is a stereotypical point to make in India. How do you think the role of spin will play a part in this World Cup in comparison to, say, in England and in Australia in the last World Cup?
I think it doesn't matter where cricket's being played. Good spinners will find a way to have an impact on the game. And this is a World Cup, so you're talking about the 10 best teams in the world, whether we like it or not. It's 10 best teams in the world on show at the moment. And so these spinners will find a way to have an impact on the game. And obviously, with there being so many venues, there may not be as much wear and tear as if it were 4 to 5 venues, but there's still going to be wear and tear as the tournament goes on with the pitches. So the scores will come down and spinners will come into play more and more as the tournament goes on. And another thing that will impact spinners' impact on the game as well is the time of day that these matches are being played. Normally in India, the day-night matches do start a bit later, and the dew takes effect So the team chasing virtually is assured of having better batting conditions and generally win 9 out of 10 times. But now it sort of brings more parity to the game, with start times being a lot earlier and bringing all of the options into play for longer for both teams.
Wow, so it's really interesting point you make there. I suppose, like you said, from not necessarily from from a normal cricket perspective, potentially don't take into consideration those aspects of from the dew and that side of things. From a tournament perspective, and we're talking about related to batting here now. If you in the early stage into the first two group stage games, is it a good thing that the games come quick and fast, or if you're struggling with form, how would you, from your perspective, how would you go about trying to get yourself back into a bit of nick or a bit of momentum ahead of with them being so quick fire and it being the tournament as well?
Well, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there. It sort of depends. If you're on a good roll, then you do want them to come quick and fast,
Yeah,
individually and as a team. But if you're not getting off to a great start, you've lost maybe 1 or 2 games, like you do sort of hope that you get a bit of breathing space for guys to sort of just take things down a bit, get away from cricket, just clear their heads mentally, refocus, refresh, and find a different approach. So it just depends on how teams and individuals start the tournament,
yeah,
what they would prefer personally and collectively as a group. Generally, you sort of like tournament play. It once those first few games go, you sort of find like it just sorts of steamrolls down a hill, so everything just moves really quickly.
yeah,
The days go by really quickly, and by the time you know, you're almost at the end. So it's something that you do want to preferably individually and collectively start well. So if you have a slip up in the middle, you can still make amends at the end, as opposed to having a bad start and being under pressure to go win, 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 or score, 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 wicket, 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 wicket
yeah.
throughout the tournament.
In terms of obviously it's a different white ball format, the IPL and the T20 stuff, but some of the teams, South African, some of the top players in South Africa, some of the lads in the Australia setup, and also the Indian lads have all played in these IPL tournaments. How much will that be a benefit to those lads who played in a lot of these grounds, in a lot of these conditions, a lot of the crowds side of things? How much will that play a part in being a benefit to them?
I would say it would benefit them, but I would say it's not only just the guys that would have played in the IPL, because most teams tour India now. India plays such a high volume of cricket.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
But apart from, unfortunately, maybe Pakistan and the Netherlands, every other team they would have toured India and would have vast amount of experience playing in India and all these various grounds and conditions and stuff. So I think India, more so than anything, because of the volume of cricket that is played there, whether it's internationally or IPL, as you said, like more so than anywhere else in the world, that should be pretty much a second home to all international players, because of the amount of times that you'd have to go there and play whatever league or series it is. So I think guys should be well versed and comfortable playing in those conditions and know what to expect and how they're going to go about executing.
and I kind of want to touch a little bit more on England. How would you be as captain if he was in Joss Butler's shoes, in the fact that England have probably come into the tournament as potentially second favourites or third favourites, give or take, and then they've obviously had that real sort of dressing down yesterday. How would you feel being in Joss Butler's shoes there?
I don't think that they should take it too hard. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to lose at the end of the day, especially in a World Cup. But it's literally just the first game of the tournament.
Yeah,
There's a lot more cricket to be played, and I think that from my observations, the England currently their strength is their batting, so they would try and tailor things towards them. Obviously, bowling first, where and if possible.
yeah,
Um, Again, having said that, they still miss the likes of Stokes, and they still got 280, and let's be honest, their batting didn't come off anywhere near to what it potentially could. So there's a lot of positives to take away from that match. From the England team, it's not like it's a doom and gloom situation. You've got very experienced, very destructive guys, Johnny Bairstow, Josh Butler, Moeen Ali, all these guys. So I mean, they'll know how to bounce back. These are all guys that not just experienced international players, but experienced IPL players as well. So
yeah,
going back to our previous topic of playing in India, these guys will know what it takes to come back from a loss and how to sort of play and formulate wins or try and create conditions or situations for them as a team to come out winning more often than not.
yeah. I think, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think that from my perspective, I was, watching the game, I just felt that there was a little bit, England left a lot out there in the fact of starts. I think when me and you spoke in the summer, we talked about the Ashes and stuff, and it was like getting into 30s and 40s and giving your wicket away and stuff like that. And I think that, Root getting to 70, but then not kicking on, and Bairstow at the top of the order, he was aggressive and stuff, but he's like, go on, we need to go again, and you get on, Bairstow gets that 70 or 80, then Root gets his score, and then lads at the tail towards the end can then make it to that 350, 360 sort of score. But I think that you mentioned there about, like, especially Stokes, but Moeen Ali, I think that, again, this is just my opinion, I think it's going to be really important this tournament, the likes the all-rounder, not just this tournament, but tournaments in general, that the all-rounder sort of plays. I think Ravinder, who obviously got his 100 yesterday, he got 10 overs out as well, left arm spin, and Jadeja will play a massive part in it. Maxwell at times for Australia will bowl his off, get his off spin in. How important do you think is an all-rounder from the balance of a side perspective, and again, in one-day international cricket?
I think in any format it's important, but I think that what people undervalue is the role of specialists.
Right.
Once the specialists are doing their jobs and doing it well, then the all-arounder then can gloss off and polish off any little faults or any little things that didn't go well. But if you have specialist bowlers, for example, you're playing 4 specialist bowlers and you've got 2 all-rounders to sort of make up 10 overs between them, but 2 of your main bowlers are having a terrible day, then you're putting your all-rounders at risk of exposure of bowling much more overs than you'd want as a team. And then the opposition then have a chance to score bigger scores, and things like that sort of alter your game plan of how you're going to chase, etc. So I think it mostly comes down to the specialists, whether it's a batting side of it or the bowling side of it, and just making sure that they're executing and taking the game deep from their ends, so that the all-rounders don't have as much work to do or have to have that big of an impact on the game.
Right. Okay. So now I'm going to push you into a quick little bit of question. You said you narrowed it down into 5.
Yeah.
I want one winner. Who you fancy? Who's your pick?
If I had to pick, right now, I'd go India. Obviously, just because they're home and they know the conditions better than anyone, the composition of their team, and I just think that Rohit Sharma is probably the best captain in the tournament.
Okay.
Obviously, Virat Kohli is Virat Kohli. I don't need to say anything else apart from that, especially with, this is probably going to be, this definitely is going to be his last World Cup. If he's playing the next World Cup, that would be amazing. So to cap it off with a World Cup win, to have won 2 World Cups at home, nothing would be better than that. And we know his competitive drive. So
India, right? Okay, can't really argue with that. I don't think, to be honest with you. I think if I was to pick, if you ask me the same question, I think I'd have to go with India. Although I was prior to yesterday, it's easy to say after yesterday's game, don't get me wrong, but I think New Zealand have got a fantastic chance. I really, really do. I think they've got that mentality of, like you mentioned at the very start, of winning games in tournament cricket. I think they've got fantastic balance. I think at the top of the order, I think, like you said, we've talked about the role that Kane Williamson will play. Glenn Phillips, the role that he'll play will be, massively important there as well. So I think that as the tournament goes and teams will start to pick up that momentum, I think we'll have a lot clearer idea in terms of who we see, making a statement. I think England will bounce back as well. I think that will probably be a little bit of a kick up the arse in terms of them, thinking, right, okay, yeah, we are defending champions. We're not going to go out here in a disappointing manner. We want to be competing across in every single game and hopefully be there or thereabouts at the end. Because I think that when it comes to match winners, I do think England have got some match winners in the side, obviously, but obviously some of the other sides have. I wanted to go back a little bit and ask you a little bit. What's your biggest memory from World Cup when you were growing up? What was your first memory in World Cup cricket?
I remember seeing Saeed Anwar make 100 against India in the 2003 World Cup? I think so.
In South Africa?
Yes, it was.
Zimbabwe, yeah.
Yeah, it was the most magical innings I've ever seen, and that, like, he was my favorite batsman, from since that day. Like, he was just so easy on the eye. It was just a languid, fluent 100, and yep, that's I could say the first memory of World Cup cricket that I can clearly remember.
No, fantastic. I think I do want to obviously touch on it. Obviously, I know it's sentimental from the perspective of it's just disappointing, obviously, not to see the West Indies in the tournament. What they bring, the atmosphere and the way that they are. It's just disappointing. Do you see changes being made to hopefully bounce back and appear in the next World Cup?
Changes have to be made. It's not a matter of if or do they want to. Like, it's now at a point where, for the first time in the history of 50-over cricket, the West Indies are not qualified for a 50-over World Cup, and I think that's a deeper rooted issue than the players. If that makes sense, it's a lot to do with sort of structurally as an organization, as an entity. CWI need to sort of have a clear path of how they want to take West Indies cricket forward, in my opinion. And like I sit at home sometimes, like, because West Indies cricket is very dear to my heart, and everything that I've gone on to achieve outside of cricket in life, in business, I met my wife because of cricket,
Yeah.
And so that was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And we've gone on and built a great life together. We do so many different things, and all of that comes from cricket. So to see West Indies cricket in this state, knowing what it's done for me, I've traveled the world. I've met so many different people, so many friends, so many opportunities, and it genuinely hurts to see West Indies cricket in this state. And as I was saying, so I'm sometimes at night, like, I sit down and I write different plans of what I think could help West Indies cricket. And I mean, we have the answers within. It's just for people to, I guess, sort of listen and be open to ideas from others, as opposed to thinking that any one man or any one small group of individuals have the answers, because I mean, when you look at it, we've got some of the greatest players that have ever graced the face of the earth, and they're not necessarily involved in West Indies cricket at all, or to a level that, in my opinion, they should be involved. These guys need to be on retainer contracts and be working with regional teams and the West Indies team, and helping to understand and cultivate the next level of talent within the Caribbean, and continue to grow and improve the standard of cricket. Because when these guys pass away, all that knowledge is gone, and we're never going to be able to extract it again. And then where do we get that level of information from? Where do we get to understand Viv Richards's work ethic and why he did this and why it meant so much to him, how he did it? Where do we get to do further in-depth insight into Lance Gibbs, how he was able to do what he did when he did, and there's so many other great West Indians that are just doing whatever they're doing, wherever they are. And obviously guys go off into the world and have their own lives to live, etc. But you don't necessarily need or have to have a guy around for 7 days a week. If you have these guys come in maybe 2 days a month, you're talking about, we have so many different legends that collectively it all makes a difference, and we're all working towards getting West Indies cricket back to where it should be and making the region feel proud. Because if West Indies cricket dies, and I've heard lots of people talk about things like having individual islands represent themselves, and if West Indies team can't represent and win, and that's the best talent from the region, the best talent from the islands are not as good as the best talent from the region. So it's literally the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. Like, the best talents from the islands are not at all. Like, even if you take away, let's say, whatever island thinks that they're the best, you take them away and let them play on their own against the rest of the West Indies. The rest of the West Indies will win. So these things, like, people really need to think a bit more in depth about what they're saying, and obviously the finer intricacies of like all these things of going on your own as opposed to playing for the West Indies. So I know it was a bit of a long rant there, and I could go on for hours on this because it means so much to me. But
I know that, speaking with you as well, I know how much it means to you. I know how passionate you are, and it's not a rant. It's just you giving your opinion of something that you feel so strongly about. You openly said last time we spoke on the first episode about, if you wasn't to play for the West Indies, I wouldn't play cricket. Matt, your desire, your passion to still represent the West Indies is as clear to see as ever, and it just goes to show the importance that it means to you to sort of do that. So I don't think it is ranting. It's just something you're just expressing your opinion on something you feel so strongly about.
100%.
And I think that at the end of the day, with the World Cup here, is that, yes, I appreciate that the Netherlands have done everything they've done to deserve that, and nobody can take that away from them. But do we want to see the West Indies back in tournament cricket, playing at the highest level? Absolutely, because the legacy is there. You mentioned the greats of the game. That's where it's come from. They've competed at the highest level of these top tournaments, and they've done what they've done. And I think that we do want to see the West Indies back in that respect. And I don't think it's in my opinion anyway. I don't think they're a million miles away from that. I think it's hopefully just around the corner, and with the a structure in place and the right people in place, hopefully we can see that happen and things. But hopefully a bit more funding comes in and things like that, and they can get a bit more support to make it happen and things, because, well, it's the West Indies at the end of the day. Nothing can change what the history books, and that's why they should be playing in the World Cup and things. So that's my little 2 pence on it.
There you go.
Oh, exactly. Anyway, well, thank you very much anyway for tonight. It's been good to have a chat about, obviously, your stuff that's going on with the Super 50 and discussions around the World Cup and what it's like to play tournament cricket and the favourites, and with India and the balance of sides and stuff. So I hope you've all enjoyed it tonight, and thank you so much, Kai. Your knowledge and your insight into the game it's really, really good, and I love listening to you, mate.
Thanks, Jordan. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, we'll speak soon, mate. See you later.